Hey everybody, welcome to the Ashes Community Podcast, episode 4. I hope everybody had a good week and enjoying the weekend so far. Today's guests are Belwin, one of the Ashes of Creation community moderators, and Victor Belmont, one of the community members. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing awesome. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. How about you, Victor?
I'm excellent. Happy to be here, guys.
Okay, that's good to hear. All right, so because it's number 4 and we covered a lot of other topics in the past 3 podcasts, I thought today we're going to take a topic that I really do enjoy talking about, and that topic is going to be raids and dungeons. So it's really going to be, this podcast is really going to be about PvE. And let's just jump right into it because I've been looking forward to this all week. So the first topic we're going to talk about is why do we like or hate raids? Because I noticed in the past months, there are 2 camps on the Ashes of Creation Discord server. There is one side that is really looking forward to the PvE and how the whole world develops and the environment and everything. And the other side, you got those PvP players that don't really care about the PvE content. So my question for you two is, because I love raids. There is nothing like more exciting for me to actually go into a raid with some friends. I love raids. Let's put it out there. I love raids. What about you two? Do you guys like or love raids? I'm talking about the PvE sense of raids. You know, take a bunch of your buddies, go into a dungeon or a cave and kill something with your friends. Like, do you guys love or hate raids?
For me, I happen to love raids. I enjoy the community aspect of it. I enjoy getting together with my friends. It's something that you can do that involves some strategy, some tactics, and fun. And it's a group fun. It's not, I'm out farming solo. Oh, I just did a quest and an NPC spoke to me. No, the guy that's leading the group right now, that's a friend that I know and I can talk to, and we can converse with and enjoy what we're seeing together.
And I agree with you as well. From my own perspective with raids, I think it's really important in the aspect of building a community or a guild. If you're getting a group of people together, going out with a singular focus to try to, let's say, take down the boss at the end of this dungeon, what brings people closer together and to learn their play styles that could evolve into things greater, such as a PvP raid or any type of focus within that. But I think that building a community is all focused around raids.
Okay. If you guys think back, what are like the raids? Like, what are the most? No. Let's not say the most. What are those raids that really like shaped your whole aspect or your whole opinion about raids? Because if I remember, if I think back, way back, like the first time I really got into raiding was during World of Warcraft Classic. I've been playing MMOs even before that. I played EverQuest 1, EverQuest 2. I even played some Ultima Online way back in the day. But the first time I really felt like, hey, raids are awesome, is when my guild for the first time went into Molten Core, which was one of the first raid instances in World of Warcraft Classic. So what are you like memorable situations where you guys went raiding? Like, what are your favorite raids?
I gotta say, you hit the nail on the head for me. Molten Core. I had played other games before a while, but Molten Core was the first serious raid that I enjoyed. And the big moment for me was I knew a lot of guilds that had gone into Molten Core, and at the very entrance, you've got 2 giants. And so many guilds failed immediately on those 2 giants because people didn't plan. They didn't have the expectation that there would be a difficulty level to it. And so many people failed, and my guild actually got through those 2 giants on our very first try, and everybody got so ecstatic about doing that we failed the rest of the thing for that entire night. But that first moment of, wow, we did this, and it was a group, and it took a lot for us to go as a guild, because we were a smaller guild, and the logistics of getting 40 people together, that was a huge moment for us. And we had a dance party on top of some giant corpses. It was great.
Sullivan, what about you?
For me, I'm an enormous fan of Lord of the Rings Online. And that was one of the first real MMORPG experiences for me. So mine was with the dungeon called Helagrod. It was a 24-man raid, and it was the first chance to really come together with a vast majority of the guilds, which back then were significantly smaller than those today. Going into a dungeon, spending several hours on, let's say, a Friday or a Saturday, trying to figure out these advanced mechanics on the multiple bosses, and ultimately earn a title or some armor drops from killing the last boss inside of that dungeon. It took months for the first successful kill, and a lot of months of frustration, but a lot of team building as well, where we all got together and worked out those mechanics.
Yeah, that's like I agree on like everything you guys just said, because for me, raiding was always about, like, when I first started out gaming, raiding was always like, hey, you know what, we need to team up with some more people because we cannot beat this guy, but if we beat him, we're awesome. And that whole feeling of companionship and adventure, that's something that fascinated me about raiding. But I have to say, and this is gonna go into our next topic. Raiding also at some points showed me like the evil underbelly of MMORPGs, because of the people you have to go raiding with if you don't have the option to play with your friends. Let's jump right into that, because that's something I noticed a lot of people talked about on the official Ashes community Discord, which is raid size. And this is gonna be a thing for the rest of the podcast. We know that, I don't think it's confirmed. Like, I tried to look up before the podcast started. I tried to find like a confirmed number or whatever. But the only thing I did find was Steven saying they're aiming for 40 people. So 40 people raid sizes, I think, is awesome, because it puts me, I think Victor is in the same boat as me. It puts us back in those glory days of World of Warcraft vanilla raiding, Molten Core, Blackwing Lair, all that stuff. Which is awesome, because if you run into the enemy with 40 man, it's just an amazing feeling. But I have, because the way the game is set up, there is player collision, which World of Warcraft did not have. And there's a lot of other things that I noticed in the past 5 years, 8 years, since World of Warcraft vanilla, that raids became smaller size-wise, but became complicated. For example, if you look at raids in World of Warcraft now, and you look at raids back in the day, the raids back in the day compared to those today, they're like nothing. They're like a breeze through when it comes to mechanics and everything and systems. I don't know, like if I look at the Lich King versus Ragnaros, the mechanics, it's like a joke. Like Ragnaros is like something a baby could do, while the Lich King on Heroic was like, holy shit, how can we ever kill this guy? So what do you guys think about them aiming for 40 people? And do you think the raids are gonna be as hard as they try to make us believe? Who wants to go first?
I'll hit that. It used to be that with 40-man raid, the reason things were quote-unquote easier tactics-wise is because you had that many people to coordinate. And at least when we first started, gearing and whatnot was a little more limiting in what you could do. And we also had fewer classes, fewer abilities, less to maintain. But then as they shrank things down in order to compensate for the fact that you just have less warm bodies, they started bringing out the advanced tactics. I remember, like doing the Lich King, you didn't have 40 men, you had 25, but the difficulty was, despite the fact that a lot of people consider Lich King easy raiding, the difficulty between Lich King and Molten Core is not the same topic. That's why we had all those achievements, and you would try to do those achievements, and then you would think, would I even do that in Molten Core? No, you would stand in a circle, you might move a little bit to the left or the right, but you weren't having team dodging activities, and you missed that one mechanic and you just killed half the raid by yourself. Nothing like that. And I'm looking forward to somewhat larger raids, as long as we don't get to the point where you have the standing around. Because at 40 is about the upper limit before you start having people that are just AFK in the back of the raid and on auto swing and whatnot. I want people to be actively engaged, but like you said, we're going to have collision and whatnot. So advanced tactics in the raids might be a little bit more difficult at 40 man. That might end up being more like the outdoor bosses, whereas the indoor raids might be, 25, 30 people and a little bit more advanced. Hard to say though.
What's your opinion on that, Billowin? Because I want to add something to that. Like, it's more like a wish that I want to add. But Billowin, what's your opinion on that whole situation?
So not really knowing the total number of people that are going to be in the raids, I know that you speculated there's going to be 40.
Yeah.
I've seen benefits to large-scale raids. I've seen benefits to small-scale raids, such, Lord of the Rings. We're in Moria, riding our trusty goat mounts, and we come down into Darnagabund, which is a smaller raid. The advanced mechanics and the difficulty of the dungeon really scaled the fun and the enjoyment of doing that raid versus, like, let's say Arcades, where you're going out and you're going after the Leviathan and you've got to coordinate player boats. You've an effort of 50 men that's out there, and the mechanics and everybody knowing those mechanics is paramount. One person, two people get out there and don't know what they're doing, and you wipe an entire raid. So the difficulty scale comes into play there. Everybody has to know their classes. So the coordination behind that becomes a challenge. At 40 people, if the chances of having one person that doesn't know what they're doing, obviously that's going to be a play factor. But I think that it's still manageable because getting 40 people together on a prime hours to raid, I think that's within reach for most guilds.
Well, here's the thing, and I think a lot of our viewers actually will agree with me on that point. That well, maybe not everybody, maybe it's honestly just me, but here's the way I look at it. Raids became less of an event, they became more of a necessity. Like, you need to clear this raid content to be relevant. Because nowadays, when I look at games, and I'm gonna use this reference, and I'm so sorry for it, I'm gonna use World of Warcraft as a reference like the entire night, because it's like the raid game there is right now, or always has been, like, because World of Warcraft is known for its raids. But raids in World of Warcraft became more of a, I need to clear this. I need to farm this raid to be important because I need the gear. I need to be, I need to be able to clear this content. So I need to clear this raid. And I think that whole mindset, in my personal opinion, that whole mindset is messing up raids left and right. Because what I would like to see, I would honestly, this is because I said it earlier before we started, this is what I would like to see in Ashes. Make a 40-player raid with the difficulty of the hardest World of Warcraft raid there ever was, which in still my opinion is Ice Citadel, Lich King and all the bosses before him on heroic. Like, make that stuff hard as hell. And don't make it like, hey, yeah, the top guilds are gonna be clearing it in 1 or 2 weeks. Make it hard, make it 40 people, put in mechanics that are hard for 10-man raids, make them hard for 40-man raids. Because then raids are going to be on a new level of, hey, this is awesome, you need to put work in this. This is what people want, at least in my opinion, that's what people want. Because honestly, I'm sick of raids that are just a blow through and you're just not having really fun because you're playing with some guy that already cleared the raid like a week ago when it first came out. That's what I want. Like, what do you guys think? Do you guys want raids that are raids that are like you're gonna put your head into it? You have to put your head in it to actually win, or do you guys just want casual like blow through raids?
I agree with you there because that's frustrating. When you look at a raid and it's cleared the first week that it's launched out, or something that never really changes or evolves, there's no reward factor. You've done that. It becomes stagnant and you lose the focus of that raid. Lord of the Rings did really well with some of their raids because, yeah, you may have beaten that dungeon or cleared that raid on tier 1, but then they added extra tiers or achievements or feats that came into play with bigger and greater rewards. But also the difficulty was significantly ramped up. You could never have attempted to do a tier 2 without having cleared tier 1 at an expert level multiple times because you wouldn't have, the skill set or the gear or the levels, mitigating factors like that.
Victor,
just makes it more meaningful.
it makes it more meaningful. It's like something, you know, you can be proud of. Because I remember the first time a guild on my old server killed Onyxia. That was like, holy shit, they killed Onyxia for the first time ever, and it wasn't done as soon as Onyxia came out. It took them a couple of weeks. So Victor, what do you think? Do you want a raid, or you want, you know, raid?
I want a mix. Your point to we see a raid cleared in a day or two by top guilds is definitely a valid point. Going back to our experience in Classic WoW, guilds took months, and you strategized, and the only add-on and help you had was going through and manually parsing data logs to figure it out, and everybody talked, and everybody worked together. Now it's, so we were on the playing test realm yesterday, and here's the new raid, and here's the strategy for every boss. You should be able to get this down within your first hour of being there. If you don't, you're probably a little slow. It should never take you more than the first week to clear all this content and never want to see it again. What is the point of that? That's horrible. But while I do want some super tough raids, because that should identify a goal, I do want things that keep people in the game, because you do want to ramp up to that. But yeah, you want to have something that clearly marks that finish pole, like that flag at the end of the first Mario levels in Mario Brothers. You want to jump up and hit the highest point on the flag you can, and you work up to that. But when you do, and you get the fireworks, it's like, yeah, that was awesome, and everybody had a great time. But if you just walked in and, oh, well, we cleared everything on our first clear through, we didn't know any mechanics, we didn't have to work for this, nobody cared. Everybody checked out. It was like in Warcraft when Pandaria came out. I feel like that's when ratings started falling in Warcraft, because everybody felt the need to do the baby first raid finder version where everything's toned down, and then you do the regular version, and everybody just felt like it was work because there was no real reward. It wasn't interesting, and that's when a lot of guilds started collapsing, because that reward and that challenge were gone.
Yeah, I agree on that. All right, because you just said reward, that actually fits perfectly in our next topic, because our next topic is rewards, worth your time, effect on crafting. Because we know, and I researched this, and I want everybody to listen, everybody who's watching, because I'm getting sick of this topic on the Discord channels. We know, and this is confirmed, I had this confirmed from the community moderators, from Shinix and Frederick, they confirmed that. We know that crafters will be able to craft items that are on the same level as raid gear. Raid gear meaning bosses in Ashes of Creation will drop items like in any other MMORPG. They will drop swords, shields, helmets, I don't know, magical underwear, you name it, they will drop that. But they will also drop crafting materials. So the question I have for both of you right now, because we know that crafters will be able to craft items on the same level as raid gear, do you think the guys from Intrepid, and this is just speculations on my part, do you think they will find a way to really make raids worth our time? Or are they gonna be just like, yeah, you know what, you don't really have to go raiding, you just wait for somebody to craft something and put it on the auction house or his vendor or whatever? So what's your guys' opinion? Like, what do you think about this whole system that crafting items are gonna be on the same level as raid items? Because as far as I know from the MMOs that I played in the past, the best items you normally only get out of raids. So now you have this whole new option on raid level items to get raid level items. Like, what's your opinion on that?
So, Arcage, looking at that one, is very similar to what you're pointing out here. They had crafted gear, the Eonet gear, which was on par or greater than even some of the raid gear. So they found a nice balance in between that allowed those folks who wanted to do the crafting focus, and they could develop up and produce gear that was equivalent to some of the more difficult. However, I also think that the raid... Yeah.
Wait, let me throw something in there, because I played Arcage. And maybe this is just my opinion, but I always thought that the raids in Arcage were kind of boring.
Oh, I agree completely. I think that they missed the mark on the raids there.
Yeah, so like you need to put yourself in this mindset before we're actually gonna keep on talking about this topic. What if raids are like really challenging? Like, what if the raids are hard? You know what I mean?
I think, yeah, I think that if the significant difficulty is there, maybe there's a way that they could drop something that goes into the crafting. Like you have to complete the raid itself before you can get that material that you need to craft that level of armor. That could help, or a straight out drop, whichever route goes. But I think that there's a way to make it work. Do I have the answer? No, not really.
Going with the assumption that the raid is quality in and of itself, then we can get to the point where is the gear the important thing? And as long as the gear that drops is equal to the effort you put in, great. And then giving crafters the ability to put in something that's equal to that is also great, because Ashes is going to be all about options. I've already talked to players who said, I'm going to be focused on crafting. I will never, ever touch a raid. It's not what they want to do. And that there's been players like that for a long time that absolutely abhor raiding, or there's players that want to do nothing but raid and will not spend the time to do crafting. So at this point, I think we need to build a system of interdependency. So we have craftable items that drop in a raid, but they're not necessarily locked to those raiders. So that raider can go to his favorite crafter and say, hey, I find this shiny thing, but I can't do anything with it. What about you? Well, you can. And when crafters have been able to have that raid level ability, it's been interesting. Like in WoW, for most part, crafters have been second rate. But I do remember for a very brief period in Burning Crusade, crafters did have some advantage to be able to get you going in raids.
Yes.
And like weaponsmiths, we had tiered weapons, and the crafting materials for them dropped in each tier of raid. And personally for me, when I finally built my Lionheart Executioner, that was amazing. And I had one of the best weapons available until the tier raid after that, tier 5.
Yeah.
And people would see me walking around with that, and they'd be like, wow, he put in all the effort. And that's the guy we want to hang out with. And it made me feel appreciated, and it made me feel like my effort, both as a crafter and as a raider, were really worth it. And I think we have that golden opportunity with Ashes to have that kind of balance, to where you feel the reward on your level of effort, no matter where you put it.
I agree on that. I completely agree on that. I think the big challenge Steven and his team are gonna run into is to find the balance between raiding and crafting, because as soon as raids become less rewarding, I think people are not gonna go into raids. They're just gonna do the crafting thing, because that is like the easier and most stressful way to get your gear. So I'm really like I got into the friends and family thing, and I cannot wait to actually like do the first raid in Ashes, because that's something that I'm really looking forward to. But I think we can all three agree on, if they hit that balance, if they really do a great job on that part, I think everybody's gonna be happy. Don't you agree?
Very much so.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's get to the next topic. And here's the thing. I thought long and hard about putting this topic into our podcast tonight, but I think it's just something that we cannot get around. And I talked to a lot of people in the past couple of weeks about this topic, and I had some interesting discussions, and I'm gonna bring up some points, and I want to hear your opinion on it. So we know for a fact, and Steven stated this, that there won't be any add-ons in the game. So no DPS meters, no aggro meters, no deadly boss mods, nothing like that. And for me personally, this is a big concern, because I think if you want to have a strong rating system within any MMORPG, where you want people to raid on a progressive level, like they want to go raiding and they want to beat that boss, like they did, I don't know, like back in Wrath of the Lich King with Paragon or Burning Crusade, like, you know, like hardcore raiders, which I consider myself, I used to be a hardcore raider. But from my experience, and I think Victor, I think you can agree on that topic in some degree, is if you go raiding in any sort of MMORPG and you don't kill the boss, you get your ass kicked by the boss, you wipe time after time after time, you need to adjust your strategy. And even Guild Wars 2, who has the same policy as Intrepid has, with there won't be any add-ons allowed in the game. People found a way through third-party software to actually implement DPS meters to see who is pulling their weight and who not. So then a couple weeks ago, I had a discussion with another community moderator, and we talked about this, and he was like, yeah, I don't want DPS meters. And I made the same point, that if you want to raid progressive in any MMORPG, you need data to adjust your strategy, to optimize your raid setting, to see who is pulling their weight and who not. Because there are people out there, they just want to get pulled through raids, and I hate those people. Those people, you know what? If you want the loot that boss has to offer, you need to, you know, pull your weight. So there are people out there that don't want DPS meters because, you know, they're lazy. So then the conclusion we came up with is, if they do raids like previous games, there will be people that will write third-party software like DPS meters and everything to, you know, to get that data to optimize the raids. And the only way around that is if they come up with a completely new raid system. Completely new, where you do not need DPS meters or aggro meters or anything like that. So what do you guys think? Because we know it's confirmed that add-ons won't be allowed in Ashes of Creation.
Going back to classic WoW, when add-ons weren't really a thing. When we first went into Molten Core or Blackwing Lair, etc., we didn't have DPS meters. Instead, we had data logs, and you would take the raw data logs and manually parse them, which was brutal. The raid leaders that had to deal with that, the logistics on the out-of-game aspect was awful. I don't necessarily miss that. Now, at the same time, pre-add-ons, most players were better. But the big problem was, as you mentioned, there were people that were not carrying their weight, and they were completely hidden. I would like to see things like DPS meters. I don't necessarily need to see a deadly boss mons. I don't need to see anything that tells me how to play and holds my hand. But I do respect that add-on to a certain extent. The only add-ons that I ever really didn't like was, I remember when Omen Threat Meter first came out in Classic WoW. Did not like it, because prior to that coming out, people understood their class and they understood how to push their DPS without pulling off the tank, because you had to. If you didn't intrinsically know how to do it, the boss was going to turn around and smash you hard, and potentially you were going to cause a raid wipe. Then Omen came out, and everybody's like, oh, well, I'll just mash buttons until this thing starts lighting up and telling me don't do that. It dumbed it down a little. I would like us to find that balance that doesn't dumb things down, but also takes away the back-end logistics that were just a headache, that took away from my time gaming.
So, but you would agree that if you wanna raid on a progressive level, that you need raid data. You need information to optimize.
Oh, exactly. It's just we used to have to do it by hand. And now I understand if they don't want to have something in-game that takes away from the UI or changes where your focus is. And if they have like an aftermath report that I can go on the Ashes website and view that, you know, Belwyn was number 3 on DPS and Giant was hiding in the back corner, that's fine. But a total lack of data we can't do, because you can't progressively raid with a total lack of data.
I agree on that. I totally agree on that. So you're talking about like an in-game like world of logs, where it logs the information, you can look at it afterwards.
Right. If they want to go that route, I completely support that. But the idea of zero data at all, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow, unless, like you said, they find a way to completely revolutionize raids. And I'm fully prepared for them to blow me away.
Yeah, me too. But
that's going to be a hard sell.
Bellowin, I played Lord of the Rings, but I never got into raiding in that game. Like, what's your opinion on that?
So I see the valid points that you're making here, and I felt that pain before, because before a lot of the add-ons came with Lord of the Rings, we had to manually parse data from the combat logs. Painful, because they're person specific, so you had to count on the members of your raids to provide that data. Sorry, dog aggro here. But that data, trying to mine it out is very challenging, and you're relying on each person inside of your raid to cough that data up for you. I like what Victor alluded to there. If there was, let's say, an API that could be exported out to a cloud server and then do something with those database table fields that you could evolve a raid report or something like that really works well for you as the raid leader, so that you can get a general idea of where you were, where you lacked, and where to improve. I think it's important. I really do think that something needs to be offered in that regards. Otherwise, it's almost like taking a shot in the dark, trying to go in there and lead an effective raid until you really get down the mechanics.
I mean, and this is just me talking, and because I have over 12 years of experience when it comes to MMORPGs, but more than often, I feel like if I go into raids and I don't know what everybody is doing as a raid leader, I'm handicapped. Because, for example, if I go into a raid and I see, hey, yeah, we got the mechanics down, the movement is on point, everything works, but we're not killing the thing. So I'm wondering, okay, what's the issue? Why are we not killing the thing? And without raid data, I have no indicator of who is pulling their weight and who not. And I know DPS meter is, for a lot of people, is a big no-go, and they don't want that. But then I'm telling them, yeah, but then we need a different raid system. We need a raid system for people that want to raid progressive, they want to optimize, they want to do that whole thing. Because a lot of people, I know, like each and one of my friends that still plays World of Warcraft, is that type of raider. They want to go in there, they want to kill the boss, but they want to know how they're doing. And the other side of that coin is the guys, they just, want to go in the raid and, maybe kill a boss, maybe get some loot. They don't really care about their damage. And it's always a recipe for disaster if you mix those two kinds of people without any, raid information. Because I had raids where I had to, and I'm sorry for that, but I had to kick people out of my raid group because, they were not even, they were doing less damage than the tank. And then they complained about why and everything, and I'm like, yeah, this is the reason why. So I feel unless they really come up with a new raid system, which I'm cheering for that, come up with a new raid system that doesn't require any sort of information, that would be awesome. That would be like hell yeah. But from my perspective and from my past experience, I think that's just a really hard thing to pull off unless they really revolutionize the rating system we all know since ever.
I agree with you there, and it kind of touches on to another topic that is in relation to this, is the inability to inspect a player's gear. So as a raid leader, you're now even more handicapped going into it because you may not even know what type of gear the people are in your raid with. You could have people with level 1 base gear showing up to, let's say, a top tier level 58 etc. raid, and they're completely ill-equipped. You're even further handicapped. How can you spot that? How can you know the areas where you need to improve, where you're lacking? I just think that some type of system does need to be in place.
Yes. Okay, let's just say we agree that if they go with the old system that we all know, they need to find a way to balance that, or they need to come up with a whole different system. Would you agree on that?
Totally.
Victor?
Completely.
All right, good. Then let's jump to, because this is a topic, because as I do it once in a while to be a little bit evil, I just post in some sentence on the Discord about DPS meters, and then I just go offline and let people argue about that topic for the next 3 days. And I'm sorry for that, but it's a little bit of fun for me to see people argue about it without any real points to really make sense of things. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this actually turns out. But let's go to the next topic, because in a lot of MMORPGs, raids tell a story. Let's take World of Warcraft, for example. World of Warcraft does most of his major storytelling through questing, dungeons, and raids. Like, if you remember, like, every big raid had its own cinematic, and you know, like, hey, yeah, this is the guy. Like, we've been playing this DLC. We've been playing Wrath of Lich King forever to fight this guy, and we know he's there. We know what is going to happen in this raid, and through the time playing through the raid, we hear stuff, NPCs talking, and we learn more about the story. And it's linear. It's just going one way. So here's my question, and here's what I want to know, because this is what I like. That's like one of the things that I really need to know is: do you think, because the world of Ashes Creation is not linear, like everything can happen, every server is gonna be different, do you think they will do storytelling through raids like in other MMOs, or will those just be like, you know, random generated raids, you know, depending on what node does what? Or do you think within raids we actually going to discover like new stories about the world? Victor, why don't you start us off? What do you think?
I think Ashes is actually tougher on story than most games, because in Ashes, we are the story, not necessarily the world. In Warcraft, the NPCs were the story, and up until the latest expansion, you were just a no-name peon grunt in the army that followed whichever random person around. And this is going to be completely different, where we dictate what happens to the world, and it's all about player interaction and conflict. And due to the dynamic way that nodes work with, I've unlocked this, but you haven't, it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to tell a linear storyline through the raid. Instead, I think this is their opportunity to have more of a backstory. Everybody's really interested in where the world came from. We're deciding where it's going, but we don't know what's happened on this side of the portal for the past however many bajillion years. We don't know what all dark things came up and smashed the world. But these raids could give us an opportunity to say, well, while you guys were gone, this is what had happened here. Now you guys are going to take this forward, moving there, but now you know where we've came from, and now you can decide as a player how that's going to affect your decisions on the world. That's where I see it going.
Billowin, what's your opinion on that?
I really like where you went there with that, Vic. As you alerted to, it's always the NPCs that have been the major focus of the story. How do they evolve into this world that's no longer linear and try to tell the storyline, or let's say a back storyline that includes the players and can be focused around a raid? I can see areas where you could potentially do that, but how do you do it effectively? Because every story is going to change. Are there optional storylines that you learn about, or it's a really complex and difficult subject. I really don't know how you would do so effectively. I really don't, but I hope that they do figure it out.
Well, we know, and Jeff said this, that the world is gonna have secrets for us to discover even months after the game goes live. So what I'm really hoping is that there is a story in the world that is told through raids, but not through one raid specifically, more like through several raids. For example, node B in zone D unlock that raid, and you only have one piece of information about the story of the world in that raid. So now you want to know, hey, we know this, but what happened after this? So now we need to go and destroy that node over there, because if we destroy that one, that other raid is gonna open up, and we're gonna find more out about the world if we unlock that raid. And that's something that's something I think could be a great thing to do. And yeah, because raid's always been like this the epilogue, like the not the epilogue, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the highlight of a story. Like, raids are these big things you experience with your friends, and I think if they do it the way I think they will, I think it's gonna be epic, because then you're really forced to really explore the world and, maybe, team up with other communities to actually take down a bigger metropolis just to find out what's going on in the world. I think that's like a genius idea if they do it that way, but I'm not sure because I don't work for an Intrepid. So do you think they could do it this way?
Honestly, it feels like their opportunity to do a massively oversized Dungeons and Dragons campaign. In D&D, the players dictate where the story goes based on their decisions, just like Ashes. So instead of you walked through a raid that was a narrative and told you what happened in the story, we could have these raids where, like you said, it's a hint, a clue of this is what happened in the past and this is what's going on behind the scenes. And now that you know about this, what do you want to do with it? You just had the hint that somewhere on the other side of the region, there's another node that might have hint number 2 of what was going on in the background. Are you guys going to deal with it? Or are you going to ignore it? And again, it comes back to that player choice, but it ties us into that story and makes our choices relevant. Because are we going to pursue the story or are we going to make our own?
I think that's interesting. I like that because the thing that you just kind of touched on there is if you don't address the issue, does it then evolve and change the storyline so that something else happens? Let's say that you discover some piece of knowledge and by not taking action, it then causes a cataclysmic event to occur.
And now you have to deal with it because the mountain exploded, a demon popped out and ate your raid and took all your pie.
I like the idea, but here's the idea is awesome. The idea is just genius, but I think the amount of work and technology needed to actually have something like this, I'm skeptical. Like I'm cheering for it, but I'm skeptical. I would love to have that because that would be like a real like everyday adventure and nothing is the same, nothing is linear, everything can happen sort of situation. I would love that, and that's the whole reason I got into Ashes of Creation is because of that opportunity. So if they can take that and implement it into raids and the story raids tell, oh god, I think I gotta quit my job and just be a hermit and just live in front of my PC for the rest of my life.
Well, that's where all our player feedback as a community comes from. If we can give them the proper level of encouragement and say, yes, you're on the right track, or no, you're not, we can get what we're looking for. And keep in mind, they're always expanding the team. If some of us had the hidden talents to go help the team, by all means, apply and go get this done so the rest of us can enjoy. And rather than being a hermit, quit your job, go work for Intrepid, and just play the game there all day long.
Funny story. I quit my job last week. Thursday was my last day. I'm actually writing my application for Intrepid right now.
Outstanding.
Most excellent, sir.
This is gonna be a fun week. But yeah, let's get back to topic. So because I think, like I said, raids have two sort of what's the word I'm using? I wanna put this in the proper terms so people understand this. Raids have two sorts of players that want to do raids. The ones that don't really give a crap about what's in the raid. I just want to kill the boss because I want the item and I need stuff because I want mine. On the other hand, you have people like myself. I go into the raids for the raids and not what the raids give me, because I like boss fights. I like hard boss fights. I like the story raids tell. For example, when I first went into what was it called? Oh, damn it. Help me. Black Temple, that was the one. Black Temple. And because I knew Illidan from back from the Warcraft strategy games, and I'm like, oh dude, that's that Illidan. I know that guy. I know his story. I'm like, oh, this is what happened. Oh, this is awesome. And I think if they find a way to really tell a good story through the rating system, I think there's going to be a huge benefit for the entire player base, no matter who.
Yeah, I'm definitely wishing him luck on that one, because if you can try to weave a storyline in a story that's not linear, that evolves like that, that's going to be an impressive feat.
Yeah, because somebody just wrote that, and that's I think that's the point I'm trying to make here. That Victor, can you remember when the trailer came out for Burning Crusade, and at the end Illidan says, "You are not
prepared."
exact." I was like, dude, I want to fight that guy. I want to know what am I not prepared for, what's going on. And now, I don't know, like 8 years later with Legion, I'm like, oh yeah, now I am prepared because now I know what's going on. And I think raids just have it. In raids, you have a chance to tell a story in an environment that no other platform gives you. Because, you know, you can tell a story through quests and dungeons, but, you know, if you go and kill a boss and then you get a line or two from that boss as soon as he dies, I think that's, with your friends, 40 of them, I think that's awesome. All right, because I'm talking way too much about these topics. I'm so sorry. I'm just a big raid nerd. Let's jump to the next topic, which is open world and raids, because we know a lot of the raids are gonna be instanced. Dungeons are going to be instanced. There's a few things that are instant in this game, but we also know that there will be open world raids and open world dungeons, which I always have some sort of an issue with, because open world raids and dungeons, well, dungeons maybe not. You know, dungeons are, you know, if you talk about the real meaning of dungeons, it's just some underground, you know, dungeon where they tortured people, but open world raids is for me, you know, an area where you have really strong enemies, NPCs, and you have one big boss monster. And do you think, and this is my question now, this also goes towards the chat, so if you have an opinion on that, please let me know. And because here's my thing. Do you think that open world raids and open world dungeons will allow people to start zerging down these big bosses in these open world raids, or zerg through dungeons, open world dungeons, to just gain experience? Because I'm not a big supporter of zerging. I hate zerging I always hated zerging. So what do you think open world raids will be, and how open world dungeons will work?
Like you said, it all comes down to zerging and what you're doing to prevent that. I remember when open world bosses first came to World of Warcraft, everybody was a little concerned because of open world bosses in EverQuest. In EverQuest, you could get an open world boss, and whoever got that hit and that kill, all right, that was it. That was yours. The competition for it was fierce. You would have guilds that just sat there forever. And often you would have people that were just blitzing these things. And the same thing happened to the first bosses in World of Warcraft until they figured out how to more or less get around it. Your respawn might be completely across the zone and you have a 10-minute walk back to your corpse. Or the boss might start doing ridiculous amounts of AoE if he detected too many people around him. And then, you know, again, tagged for kills to limit loot. If we have these systems in place to limit people from just saying, hey, let's get 200 guys together and just kill this boss over and over and over again for free, quick, and easy loot, then great, because it defeats the effort that the developers put in to creating that boss if you're just stomping on it in a few seconds because you're able to ignore the mechanics and you don't require any skill. There's no effort to that reward. So at that point, in my opinion, is it a reward? It's no fun to just have something handed to you and then you move along. You need to feel like you did something to get that sense of accomplishment. And that's my concern with the dungeons as well. Are we going to have people that are just laying in there constantly waiting for a boss to respawn at the very end of the dungeon? Or are we going to have 600 people roll through a 5-man dungeon to try and clear it out once every 5 minutes to be quick and easy? Are you going to diminish that sense of reward that would keep people hooked into the game and really want you to keep progressing?
Bellowin, what do you think?
So I like the way you're going with that one, Victor, but the element that I wanted to expand on there is you're looking at it from the perspective of those that are focused on actually completing the raid. What about the counter raid? What about those folks that come in there and want to PK you and prevent you from getting that reward? How does that factor into the equation? Or is it going to be just an open world raid where everybody, like you said, is just going to zerg it down? It loses the fun. It is, it becomes redundant. But like in the arcade game, we had world bosses, and the entire focus was either you were going out there to take the boss down, or you were going to defend the boss and try to prevent those from taking it down. It was honestly the driving element of arcades. I mean, that was the whole point of the game, was the world bosses. There really wasn't much else to it. So how do you take an open world raid or a world boss of that nature and make it more meaningful?
I think that's where that anti-zerging mechanic comes in, because once you've made it to where you can't have just 300 people come and stomp on a boss, now you have to compete for that boss to an extent. That's when that PvP opportunity does present itself, because I know that this boss is going to drop something that my node really needs, but Joe node next door, who's my competition, who we're going to siege at the end of this month, well, they're knocking on the door too. Well, if they get this, my siege on them is going to fail. So call all your friends, stop them from getting that thing.
Well, I think the worry that I have right now, and the worry that I think a lot of people have, is if they have like a system in place that allows the player to just zerg it down. I mean, like tank and spank. That's gonna be boring. But if they do it like in Guild Wars 2, where you have a lot of mechanics, even in open world bosses, I think that should be in place. That would make open world bosses more interesting.
I totally agree with you there. The mechanic set that goes around the boss has to be significantly complex. Sitting in front of a boss with one player tanking it and no control over the boss or no advanced mechanics, it's just going to make a dull grind that the only point of going out there is going to be over PvP.
Like I don't mind open world, like doing open world boss fights. I don't mind like PvP. I think that's part of the game. But as soon as an open world boss or dungeon or whatever becomes into a Zerg fest, where you just you raid. I mean, you just tank and spank, and the more people you have, the easier it gets. I think that's just stupid. I think the boss should scale with the amount of people in a certain area, and I think there should be mechanics involved in beating the boss. Somebody just wrote something. Moose wrote, for example, instead you need to kill ads to gather firestones to supply your catapults that hurt certain parts of the dragon, allowing to tickle your person. Yeah, for example, like the boss should have mechanics. An open world boss should have a lot of mechanics, and I hope they take a page from Guild Wars 2, because I think Guild Wars 2 open world bosses, I think a lot of them are tank and spank. But a lot of them have a lot of good mechanics that have to be implemented and have to be like done in a certain way to beat the boss. Because as soon as I notice that a boss can just be zerged down, I'm like, yeah, don't really want to beat that boss anymore. It's boring.
Any boss that's just a standard DPS race will never be fun for anybody.
Yeah,
it's got to have something else you do than just mash out a rotation, die, repeat, Maybe have the boss walked in a circle by the tank. That quickly loses its appeal.
I agree.
Unless the reward is just fantabulous. But even if the reward is fantabulous, again, equal reward for equal effort.
yes.
If all I've got to do is mash that combo over and over again and get the greatest reward ever, somebody failed in their design there.
Yes.
So what I was going to say there is you're touching base on something. What about evolution to the boss? Let's say that because it is a world boss and it's out there in the public realm, if you're unsuccessful, if you do wipe, do you have something kind of like Shadows of Mordor had, where you have an evolution system to the boss, and then because you did wipe to him, the boss becomes stronger or more defensive against the strategies you employed previously?
Oh, so you're talking about the Nemesis system.
Okay.
I'm thinking she's talking about the Dragon Ball Z system, where this is not my final form.
No, she's talking.
Okay.
I think she's talking about both, because I do know the Nemesis system from Shadow of Mordor, and I like that system. So if you don't kill a world boss, he changes. So he's never going to be the same world boss if you don't kill him.
Yes, exactly.
Ooh,
How does he evolve?
I like that idea.
That sounds fantabulous to me.
I don't think it would be that hard to implement that I'm thinking right now. I don't know a lot about.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. It shouldn't be that. So let's say Guild A goes into the open world, tries to kill Boss B, and they wipe, and the boss just disappears, and then pops up somewhere else in the world, looking a little bit different, having a couple of different skills. Oh, I do like that idea.
You could add things such as differences in attacks, or let's say you got the boss down to a fourth of his hit points, etc. Did he lose a limb, or how did he evolve? Maybe he's more resistant to fire this time, or less inclined to aggro on a certain set of individuals. Like if the tanks, he knows he can't kill those, so now he starts focusing on the mages or the healers as a strategy.
I like that idea. Well, that would be awesome if they would implement that in some sort of way. Alright, because we're running kind of short on time. Let's jump to the last topic, and this is something that I want to talk about. In every MMORPG I ever play, okay, not in every MMORPG, but in the most part, raids were always part of the end game content. You maxed out your levels, and now you have to go raiding. And then let's take World of Warcraft for example again. They had this issue for a while until they fixed it. The higher you got with your level, at some point you were able to solo farm or solo clear raid dungeons, which made you a lot of money till they fixed it. So my question is, do you think they will implement low level raids? Because I like to go raiding. I don't want to be max level to actually be able to raid. I would love to go raiding every 20 levels or so, because raiding is awesome. And do you think they will prevent with future DLCs, do you think they will prevent people from solo farming raids? Because as soon as you can clear a raid by yourself, it's a money, unless they fix it like World of Warcraft did.
For me, I really want to see low level raids, because that does give you something to incrementally do as you advance. And there's something about low level raids that is just oddly fun. I remember in Classic WoW, at one point there wasn't really a limit on what size of group you could take into dungeons. And one thing my guild did is we had an influx of new players, and we did a raid on the Dead Mines, very first dungeon you get. We took a group of probably 30 level 12 players into a 5-man dungeon, and it was a blast. We acted like everything was a big deal, and they were technically underleveled, so there was a bit of a challenge there. But just getting everybody together like that was a hoot. Everybody's on voice chat being like, this is ridiculous, but funny and amazing. Everybody should have that opportunity from every level. As far as soloing, I've always been a big solo raid player, because when the Death Knight came out, that was my tank. I've always enjoyed tanking. I've never really been drawn to wearing a shield. But then magically the Death Knight tank became a solo machine. If you had the skill, you didn't need friends. And I used to go through raids just to see if I could do it. And for me, it was definitely a point of honing my skill. And when I would take what I learned about keeping just myself alive in a raid that you're not meant to, when I translated that to a normal raid for my level, people saw the difference.
Okay, so you're saying as long as it's what I'm trying to say is, don't allow high level players, if you put in low level raids, or if you increase the level cap, don't allow players to go back into old raids and just farm them till death, till death, because that would, I think, have an influence on the economy. For
me, it always comes back to effort versus reward. If I'm at a high enough level that I can just walk through a raid, there shouldn't be much reward for that, because it didn't take much effort. The reward at that point is you got to see it, and you got to do it, and you got to say you did it. You shouldn't be Uncle Moneybags for it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because I remember back when that first happened, when people farmed molten core and made, I don't know, like a shit ton of money out of it. until they fix it. So that's like something I'm worried about that would happen in Ashes. Like, I don't know, like it's a way too early to actually say that. But I hope they implement low level raids, because I think as soon as you can raid with other people in a larger group, I think that's a lot of fun. Bellowin, what's your opinion on that?
This is a big challenge that's going to be faced in front of them, because games in the past have never really made an effective effort to make the raids that at a low level stay meaningful after things evolve. Lord of the Rings, for example, like you guys are alluding to, yeah, I could get on my mount, riding my goat into there, and it becomes hack and slash. All I'm doing is just mindlessly killing an entire dungeon by myself because I'm XYZ level now. You almost have to look at it from a point of scalability. Do you, if you're entering this, you're scaled back to a certain level, and then the rewards are at that level, or do you evolve and you make those dungeons harder based on level, so you're upscaling the dungeons? It's something that I haven't seen done well in any game previously. So,
have either of you played Dungeons and Dragons Online when it first came out?
No, sorry.
I have.
I remember there was a dungeon system when that first came out that you could advance the difficulty up to, I want to say it was like a star system, up to like 5 stars.
Yeah.
And it went from, this was a level 1 dungeon that you could go in right after you made your character and get through. And now you put it at 5 stars, and now it's going to be a challenge for a max level character. Perhaps they could have something similar to that.
So pretty much what they would need is a scaling system. Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. I think I don't know, like for me personally, raiding is the reason I play MMORPGs mostly. So as soon as I can go raiding, no matter what level I am, I'm happy. But I just, I also want the reward to be fair, because honestly, if I have a max level character and I run through a previous raid that took 20 people plus me to clear it, and I can clear it by myself. No, I don't. I think it's stupid to give me like a lot of gold for it, because I didn't really have to put a lot of effort in it. So I think that's something we can agree on. If they would put in a scaling system that always keeps raids hard and challenging, I think that would be quite awesome.
You do have a good point there, but like with Lord of the Rings, what they did is they tiered the dungeon. So if you cleared the dungeon and you've selected, let's say, XYZ option versus the standard, it became significantly more challenging, and then so did the loot. But I think that, again, the scalability is going to be something that weighs, heavy discussion, because some people like it, some people hate it, and still, it all comes down to how can you really enjoy that raid time and time again if it never changes. You have to have something that makes it engaging, something that brings more to it, a better reward, or more difficulty. Otherwise, they're gonna, sit on the shelf and eventually get removed from the game.
Yeah, I agree on that. All right, we're past our 1 hour mark. So if anybody in chat has a question for us, like, now would be the good time. I want to thank you too in advance already for joining me today on the podcast. It was really nice of having you. I really loved this topic and hope to have you guys on the podcast again soon in the future.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. It's been great.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it too being here. All right. Apparently, we have 2 questions from Moose. And I have a bad feeling about those 2 questions, but Moose, go ahead. Oh, holy shit, that's a long question. Okay, I gotta read this out loud now. What are your opinions on having segmented raids? For example, your node unlocks this cavern where a corrupted sorcerer is doing something shady. Your guild raids this cavern, but you find out that he was been working for someone in a node 3. How you must go on this? Stop that, you guys are fans of the... okay, so to dumb this down, so our node unlocks a raid, and this raid is segmented, and we can only clear the raid to a certain degree, and to clear out the rest we have to destroy another node first that isn't somewhat related to what's happening within that raid. I like that. That forces people...
Sounds like what he's talking about is like a cookie crumb raid. Here's the first step, follow the bread trail to the next, and it has some kind of progression, and you have to do something to follow along. I'm kind of a fan of that.
Yeah.
because it's giving you that goal and that effort, and there's some investigation and research, and again, there's a choice involved. Do you keep following the breadcrumb trail?
That goes kind of into what Steven always says with meaningful conflict. Because you can decide, hey, do I want to attack that node? Because, you know, it has meaning now, because I want to know how this raid ends, and, you know, I want to keep going. Or, you know, do I say, nope, don't need any more conflict, we're good to go? Bellowin, what's your opinion?
I have to play the opposite side of that coin. So yeah, you may not do anything about it, but then what happens now that the sorcerer who was doing the shady work has become more powerful, or he's unearthed an artifact that otherwise would have been your loot drop, and now he's mad at you because you started it from the first place, and he's coming to wreck your node.
So what I'm hearing is I'm not going to play on her server because she never hunts the bad guys down, and they always come get us in the end.
It's true.
Well, I like the idea. I'm gonna be honest here. I like the idea because it means meaningful conflict, and it means that PvE and PvP would go hand in hand with each other. So I like the idea of, you know, raids having an influence on what's going on in the rest of the world. Alright, so this is gonna be it for today. I have to actually cut this short because I have not a date, but I need to be somewhere. But again, thanks guys for having for being here. Thanks for joining me on this podcast. Thanks everybody for watching, and I see you guys in 2 weeks again. Like I said, we're doing this 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. Feel free to, you know, pass in your application or your topics, whatever, because everybody can be on the podcast. This is a show for you guys, for the community. This is not meant for me or anybody else. I'm not making any money of this. It's just, you know, to put you guys into the spotlight. So I want to thank you for joining in, for watching, for listening. And yeah, Bellowin, Victor, thanks again.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for
having
having us.
All right, everybody, have a good night.